David Quinn from the Sunday Independent. David, good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon.
David, are we stuck in the past, me and you, thinking we should be protecting our Irishness at all costs?
Well, no. In fact, I would say, all right. So what's going on, as you said, is we have a revision of the primary school curriculum going on, and that's being conducted by the National Council for Curriculum and Assessment and the Minister for Education, Norma Foley. So the present curriculum was designed in 1999 under the then Education Minister, no less a figure than Micheál Martin. And so as you read out there, the present curriculum, the one that dates back to 1999, has this section in it about fostering a sense of Irish identity, which is now mysteriously gone. And I would argue that is probably more important than ever to foster some kind of a sense of Irish identity in the way America fosters a sense of American identity. So if we're Irish in America, we're Irish Americans. Italians are Italian Americans, Jews are Jewish American, and so on down the list. But they're always American. So they have these hyphenated identities, Irish hyphen American, and so on down the list. Now, it would be a very strange thing if Ireland, as the years go on, doesn't have Polish Irish. So you don't have the hyphen, you're just Poles, Filipino Irish, Nigerian Irish, and so on down the list. But if you don't have something in Ireland that unites all the new groups that have come in, like Poles, like Filipinos, like Indians, like Nigerians, and so on and so forth, if there's nothing uniting them, then we become a much more disunited and less socially cohesive society. And if you're living in Ireland, just as if you're living in America, surely what's going to unite you is some kind of a sense of local identity, which in our case is Irish. Because why would you ditch that? Well, in fact, it's more important than ever as we get more and more immigrants coming into the country that there is some kind of identity that unites us all.
But we've been losing that for many years. It's not just the fact, of course, we have many immigrants and diversity coming into the country as well. We've been losing that for many years. When you take, say, somewhere like Wales, right? They've held on to their language. They held on to their identity. When you're in Wales, you know you're in Wales because people speak differently, generally speaking. And the street names are different. And you know you're not in England. You know you're not in Scotland. But in Ireland now, and it has been for many, many years, you could really be anywhere when you're in Dublin. I was in Henry Street recently, and it was difficult to spot what you might claim to be an indigenous Irish person. Now, many were tourists. Many were people who were probably living here many years, be it Polish or Latvian or Nigerian or whatever it is. Ireland has become, because our population has declined drastically over the last, decade in particular. We're down to 1.5 now, well below replacement level. If we didn't have that diversity and we didn't have people coming to the country, we'd be in a serious economic problem because we wouldn't have a population of 5 million people. We'd be down to 3.5 million or something ridiculous like that. But you're comparing it to America, which is very different. America's always been that melting pot of different, indigenous populations, whereas Ireland has only ever been about the Irish. So, unfortunately, me and you maybe are, living back in the past, dancing at the crossroads. Ireland has to change, doesn't it?
Well, you see, so we're obviously becoming much more of an immigrant society, and we're becoming a little bit more like America in that sense. In fact, we have a higher percentage of people born outside the country now than America has living in it. I think we're about 20% born outside the country. America's something like 15% born outside the country. There's obviously lots and lots of people descended from people who came in before. But Ireland actually needs to start looking at the melting pot model now, the way America has, or Australia has, or New Zealand has, all these countries like Canada. Because the fact is we do have a lot of immigrants here, and we do have to put serious thought into, okay, how do we integrate them? Because if we have no plan for integration, then we have a recipe for a lack of social cohesion and possibly disruption in the future if there's nothing to unite us around. So, I think like the melting pot model, which we haven't had to have in the past, because as you say, we're a very cohesive, ethnically homogenous society. So that's gone. I can't see any way to bring that back. We can argue
unless we all start having 5 kids again.
That would do it, yeah. Ultimately we have to look at fertility rates because, 1.5 is way below the replacement level of 2.1, and that means a very rapidly aging population. And the answer, some people say, is immigration, but actually it's not really, because immigrants also get older and immigrants are also having fewer children. There's only one part of the world now where birth rates are well above sort of the replacement level in that sub-Saharan Africa. But most of the rest of the world is now below replacement. So the world is going to be in a competition for immigrants in the future. So thinking that immigration long-term is going to solve your problem of having a very low birth rate is just a fool's game. Ultimately, we have to boost the birth rate. All countries have to do this. They have to get them.
Yes, we need to encourage the family.
They're in trouble.
Yeah, but we do need to encourage the family, and I know the Hungarians have tried that by offering taxes to those, tax-free for women who decide to have children or extra children. So I don't know whether, and I don't think that actually really worked. So I think there's a case here in Ireland particularly whereby people don't want to have children for multiple reasons. And they're all little kind of, I suppose, nails in the coffin. I mean, yes, it was, free contraception for people. I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but that, again, is a discouragement to have children. And the fact that you can't afford a 3-bedroom house anymore, you might only afford a 2-bed apartment or whatever it is, that discourages you having more than 2 children. All these things discourage people from having children. But getting back to our Irishness, again, comparing it to America, America's quite patriotic. They're very fond of their Americanness. But we're not. We're not as patriotic as other countries. Like the flag in this country, for example, is seen as some sort of negative thing. It shouldn't be, but it is seen as some sort of negative thing. If you see somebody with an Irish flag, he's looking for trouble. You know what I mean? So he must be right wing or something like that. So I mean, it is patriotism in this country is seen as a negative thing. Now, I don't know whether that's to do with the troubles in the north over the last 50 years or not, but it is seen as negative.
Yes, it is, yeah. Well, I mean, obviously, nationalism has a problematic history because you can have extreme nationalism. Like, you can have extreme anything. I mean, any form of politics.
Yeah, but I couldn't put an Irish flag in my front garden tomorrow because if I did, people would be going, he must be a member of Sinn Féin, he must be Republican, he must be a mad nationalist or something like that. Whereas in America, I can stick an American flag in my front garden and people go, that's great.
Yeah, when I was living in Australia for a few years, and now I'm back a long time, so I don't know exactly what it's like now, but certainly when I was living there, it was quite common for Australians to have an Australian flag up on their front lawn.
Same in America. People have flags hanging out of their porches or sticking in the front gardens. Some people have flagpoles with flags up on them. You know what I mean? But you can't do that here because you'd be seen. It's negative.
Yeah, so we're going to have to get over that. I mean, I was speaking to an American there who's been living here a few years, and he was saying, what always strikes him about Ireland compared to other countries is the absence of Irish flags. And this, again, is partly because, we have the legacy of the Troubles and all that kind of thing. But we're going to have to get past that, because if we don't get past that, and we have no identity that unites us, and if you're in Ireland, surely by definition, the identity that unites you ought to be Irishness. So we're going to have to push past that and move towards this kind of more melting pot model, or I think we're going to be in trouble as we go down the line. And as I say in my tweet yesterday, if Ireland won't foster a sense of Irish identity, then who the hell is going to? Because we can hardly expect anybody else to do it for us. And you see, I say then in a reply, so it's going to have to be Joe Biden. Because if you remember, I asked that because when Irish Americans come here, what do they look for? They always look for, and this is what we put on for Joe when he was here, the traditional Irish dancing and all these sort of things.
The pint of
that
Guinness.
are very, very almost cornily Irish. But it's what people look for when they come to Ireland from overseas, particularly those with an Irish heritage. And someday they'll come here and all that will be gone. And so it'll end up being Irish living abroad are the ones fostering a sense of Irish identity, and somehow we're forbidden to do it because somehow it's seen as problematic if you try to foster a sense of Irishness. But why was it acceptable back in 1999 and not now? I mean, the current curriculum...
Sorry about that. Sorry, go ahead, David. That was just somebody else.
So I was going to say the present school curriculum also says we need to foster a sense of Europeanness because we're obviously part of the European Union. That's also beginning to disappear. And what they're doing is they're emphasising that we're all global citizens now. But again, it's a very strange thing for Ireland not to somehow foster Irishness. However, we are.
See, isn't this the thing? And I find myself sometimes thinking that I'm old-fashioned, right? And maybe you're old-fashioned too, David. And I know we have quite conservative views. But, the world, with the expansion of communication, with the expansion of travel, although I'm sure Eamon Ryan is not pleased about that, with the expansion of all those things, we are a global village. You can just jump on a plane now and fly to America, or you can jump on a plane and fly to Spain, or whatever it happens to be. And people move around Europe. Primarily, people are now moving around the world, of course. We're seeing that more so now than we've ever seen it before. So the world is just changing. And are we stuck, me and you and other people who may be conservative, are we kind of stuck in this little time warp that we want to keep it the way it is? But that's just silly because we can't keep it the way it is, can we?
Well, I mean, there was a book came out a few years ago. It was after Brexit happened. It was by a British writer called David Goodhart, and he actually voted Remain. But the book is called The Road to Somewhere. And so what he was saying is there's an increasing division in societies between those who are the sort of people who could live anywhere and don't have any particular connection to what's local in particular. And he said the road to somewhere is there's a lot of voters, nevertheless, want their country to look like it's somehow rooted in its own history and its own culture, and there's some kind of a continuity. That if you're in Ireland, it's recognisably Irish in some ways. Say in Wales, it's recognisably Welsh. Because if everywhere ends up looking the same, the weird thing is you'll actually live in a less diverse world. I mean, if you go to Thailand, and Thailand doesn't look like Thailand, it looks like anywhere, all right? And it doesn't look like somewhere, then you actually end up with less cultural diversity. So that'll be a very weird thing. And if, again, people come from overseas and Ireland looks like anywhere and doesn't look like Ireland anymore, I mean, doesn't that mean we have a less culturally rich and diverse world? So I think it's something we absolutely have to debate. And you see, there is a growing backlash among voters against trying to make everywhere look like anywhere, if you catch my drift, making everywhere look the same, so nothing looks like itself anymore. And there is a definite pushback against that. So if you have our governments in all these various countries trying to make every country actually, weirdly, in the name of diversity, look the same as everywhere else, you will get a backlash against that, and the backlash is developing. And the government, in its new school curriculum, actually should be continuing to foster some kind of a sense of Irish identity. Otherwise, we have nothing in common.
There was one TikTok video I watched during the week, which was an African gentleman living in Ireland, and he was giving out about the fact that he had to opt his child out of school during Irish history lessons, and he believed Irish history lessons shouldn't be taught in Irish schools anymore because we've become such a diverse nation. Now, I won't go into who he was, but I know he's part of one of the NGOs. But in saying that, I mean, that's what you're up against when you have a changing population, that people's demands, cultural demands, need to be met, or do they need to be met?
Who are those demands coming from? You see, I question where those demands are coming from. Are they actually coming from the new arrivals? And frankly, I doubt it, because, I mean, they're coming to Ireland, they know they're coming to a particular kind of country, and it would be extremely unusual to expect Irish schools not to teach Irish history and culture. And I don't see the demand coming from them. I see it coming from a very kind of liberal cosmopolitan outlook that actually does want everywhere to become like everywhere else. All right? I don't think it's coming from the new arrivals. I mean, if you and I went to live in India, let's say, would we expect India to stop teaching Indian history, and would we expect it to stop teaching Indian culture in order to please us?
You wouldn't last long if you expected that.
Well, I mean, not in a million, but I mean, we'd never expect it. We would simply expect to be welcomed.
Yeah.
We'd expect, to integrate into that society. All right.
Yeah.
But we'd expect India to look like India. In fact, what would be the point of going if we want India to? I just pick India at random, to no longer look like India. And wouldn't the world again be a less rich place culturally speaking if India no longer looked like India in 100 or 200 years' time, because you're trying to satisfy people who are coming in and say, we don't want India to look like India, and I don't feel welcome.
Okay, just very briefly, because I know you have to go, and I have to have loads of callers to get to as well. But the reason that we have these cultures all over the world is because of lack of transportation going back centuries ago, right? So when you had, people, tribes, if we want to go right back in time, going on different continents, you'd four main continents of the world going back thousands of years ago, right? And these tribes grew together in their own cultures. They had no way of communicating with each other. They had no way of travelling from continent to continent, apart from boats in those days, which are very slow, and it didn't happen too often. So, in other words, they grew and they maintained all of those cultures. Whereas now, that's not the world we live in. The world we live in now is, I can go and live in America. Americans can come and live in here. Polish people can live in Spain. It doesn't matter where people live anymore. So I think over time, maybe the next 1,000 years or the next 500 years, we're going to see cultures being diluted and, a single, probably global culture. Because we can see it in young Irish children already. I listen to young Irish children speaking in American accents. You know, and that's just a simple, demonstration of it. You see them speaking because they're watching American television, they're watching TikTok, and they're listening to American accents, and they're speaking in American accents. So we're seeing that delusion or delusion of culture already.
Well, this could happen. I mean, like what you're describing could be the way things evolve over time. But I still think that countries like Ireland, countries like Wales, if I can call it a country, France, etc., Spain, Italy, etc. I mean, like, if they don't have something distinct about them, if they don't have some kind of sense of historical and cultural continuity, then the world becomes a less rich place. And you also need something within the borders of a particular region that unites people, a common identity. And if Ireland is not promoting Irishness, as I say, then who the hell is going to? Thank
you very much indeed, David Quinn. I appreciate you coming to talk to us. David Quinn, columnist with the Sunday Independent, basically said the state is about to ditch the aim of fostering a sense of Irish identity from the curriculum, the primary school curriculum, which promotes the question, if Ireland doesn't foster a sense of Irishness, who will? Let me go to Stephen.